Hi folks, I'm interviewing Lord Pearson as a kind of response to an appearance he made on Sky News recently that generated over 600 complaints regarding his desire to talk about Islam.
Maybe what I've just said will be regarded as Islamophobic, but it isn't. It's not an unreasonable fear. It's just a thirst for knowledge, to know what this thing is. After all, don't forget that the Muslim birth rate in this country is going up 10 times faster than ours. I've got a government written answer.
Well, there's them and us already.
Well, yeah, but you see what happened. They are... Or are they? I don't know. Does the Quran and their faith instruct them not to mix with Jews and Christians and all the rest of it? Those who advise me, and I've got a lot of expert Muslim advisors, do say that they are actually instructed not to mingle with us. So what happens when in 12 years' time, 11 local authorities, including Birmingham, will be Muslim majority?
But my question is whether this is a constructive discourse at all.
Lord Pearson, thank you for joining me. I noticed that some of these complaints, for example, this one to the House of Lords Commissioner for Standards by someone called Zaman Ali, complains about you describing the Prophet of Islam as a warlord. That's highly offensive, I hear.
Well, yes, I mean, I always say in reply to this sort of thing that I don't really know whether he was or he wasn't. But I think people who say he wasn't a warlord have to talk about the Battle of the Ditch in 627, when I am told, apparently it's historical fact, that he ordered the death of 500 Jews in one afternoon, and that Islam then went on to conquer most of the known world. And it wasn't till 1095 that we get a response from the Christian world with the First Crusade from Pope Urban II. So, I mean, you know, I wasn't there, I don't know. But if Muhammad did order the death of 600 Jews in one afternoon, then I think we should talk about it. And I did put the point recently to a very senior Muslim in this country. And I said, well, you say Islam is a religion of peace, what about this? And he replied, well, yes, it is true that he killed 600 Jews in one afternoon, ordered the death of 600 Jews in one afternoon. But that was because they refused to join one of his raiding parties, not because they were Jews. So I said, well, yeah, it's the same point, isn't it?
No, well, I actually think that very much reinforces your point. At least Muhammad was not a bigot, but he was a warlord, because it's a warlord that goes on a raiding party. But I'm just going to quote slightly from this. I find this complaint wonderful. I watched the interview with Lord Pearson on Sky News by Adam Bolton. I was shocked and horrified by the viewpoints he expressed on Islam. His view was abhorrent and bigoted, but not incorrect.
Well, clearly he thinks it is incorrect. I think he goes on to say that, you know, peace be upon him and all that, and Muhammad was an entirely peaceful man. Now, I don't know, but all I'm trying to do in all this is talk about it. Can we be allowed to talk about Muhammad and Islam, or can't we?
Well, that's the question, because he doesn't say that you're wrong. He says, I urge you to listen to the interview in full where he called the Prophet of Islam a warlord. The Prophet of Islam is highly regarded in our religion, and insulting him was a highly offensive thing to do to all Muslim people around the world. That's not a correction.
No, it isn't, but that's where a lot of them are coming from. And this is the sort of fervent,
yes.
You know, religious feeling of a lot of these people, which, you know, and I'm sorry if I've offended, but I'd love to sit down and talk to him with a few real experts who understand, you know. I just want to talk about it.
See, I don't see what's offensive about that. I mean, some of my favourite crusading kings were warlords.
Yes.
So, but you were accused of expressing...
Well, that's a very important point. I mean, Christianity, within Christianity, there was an awful lot of bloodshed and so on. And during the Crusades, there was brutality on both sides, normal at the time. You know, within Christianity, I don't know, the Holocaust came from within German Christendom. The Communist Revolution came from within Christian Russia. So Christianity has, the dark side of human nature has moved strongly within Christianity over the centuries. But that's not happening today. It's only actually within Islam that you get this violent reaction if you try to talk about it. And that's all I want to do. I want to open up a conversation with people who really know what they're talking about. And I want, the key is we've got to get the leading Muslims to join in. They're peaceful people, and they've got to say, you know, what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah,
but they won't do it.
Lead by example, as it were, because this is, I mean, the views expressed were pure racist and religiously aggravated, and I'm considering reporting the matter to the police. Well, it's not something that was out of character for leaders of the time to wage war during the 7th century. So this is not a judgment that we can make against Muhammad's character, because, as I said, it's a common enough thing. But it is something that's certainly true by the Quranic account of Muhammad.
I mean, the defenders of this chap's position would say that anything Muhammad did, or Islam did, was always in defense. It was always in defense against being attacked by the Romans or whoever. I don't know. I'm told that historically that doesn't actually stand up, but
I don't
let's
think
talk
does,
about it.
No. Muhammad's march on Medina certainly wasn't.
Yeah, well, his transfer to Yom.
Yes. But yes, so this generated quite a response from an organisation called TellMAMA, who, if you haven't heard of these before, Wikipedia describes them as TellMAMA, which is Measuring Anti-Muslim Attacks, is a national project which records and measures anti-Muslim incidents in the United Kingdom. And they published an article regarding you, didn't they?
I think so, yeah.
That was a very wonderful title. Lord Pearson promotes the Muslim birth rates conspiracy on Sky News. And they say that it is an enduring racist myth that Muslim birth rates are soon to replace native populations. And this reappeared on television yesterday after Lord Pearson, formerly of UKIP, spread the falsehood that the Muslim birth rate in this country is going up 10 times faster than ours. How would you respond to that?
Well, I made a mistake there. I misspoke, as they say. What I meant to say was that the Muslim population in the United Kingdom is going up 10 times faster than the rest of the population. And that's what I have figures for from the Office for National Statistics. It's official figures. I mean, that's what's happening. But I said the Muslim birth rate is going. So I got it wrong, and I'm extremely sorry. And I'm very happy to have this opportunity to put it straight. But I'm not sure that I see what difference it makes, really, on the general picture.
Yeah, so you've implicated the Office of National Statistics in the conspiracy now. Would you like to tell us what the statistics are?
Well, they say exactly that. And I actually had a written oral question in front of the whole House of Lords on the 30th of April 2018, when I asked the government what assessment they have made of figures from the Office for National Statistics showing that the Muslim population of England grew 10 times faster than the general population between 2001 and 2016. What is their estimate of future growth? This is a question to the government. And what is their assessment of the impact of that trend on the relationship between Sharia and domestic law? In other words, if this population trend continues, and we've only got official figures up until 2016, but if you extend that forward over the years, you come to, by 2067, a majority of the population of England on that trend will be Muslim majority. And we already have, I mean, much sooner than that, if you take the top 10 local authorities in England, and you take those official figures and you extend them forward, then 10 local authorities in England, including Birmingham, are going to be Muslim majority of the population by 2031. And all I'm saying when I said then, isn't this quite frightening? What's going to happen then? Because, I understand under the Quran, Muslims are discouraged, to put it mildly, from making friends with Jews and Christians and so on. And it's very, very simple in the Quran. O you who believe, do not take the Jews and the Christians for friends. They are friends of each other. And so do not do it. Surah 551. So, I mean, will that hold when we get to majority Muslim thing in Birmingham and elsewhere? Will that matter or won't it? Or will our Muslim leaders today come into the open and say, look, that's complete rubbish. We won't have anything to do with that. We will disobey the Quran and we'll be friendly and go on and so forth.
Is there any chance that that verse has been abrogated by a later verse?
No, I'm told not.
Right, okay, that's not terribly encouraging, then, is it?
No.
And some of the statistics.
I mean,
you've
are
got
you
there-
saying, is there in the Quran where devout Muslims are instructed to be friendly with Jews and Christians and pigs and things like that?
Yes.
No, I don't think so. But I'm not an expert, you know. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so
if there's someone
let's
out
have
there
that
who says,
discussion.
yes, there is, wonderful. I'd love to be wrong again.
Right. With the projected statistics by 2031, I was quite surprised to see Luton at 71%, I think it was, for
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Muslim
70.
population of the town. That's remarkable, isn't it?
Well, I mean, no more really. Obviously, Tower Hamlets is gone already, but worse, the London Borough of Redbridge will be 90%. Okay, and this just in 31. That's where it creeps past the 50-50 mark. But my only question is, you know, when that happens, what are we going to do? Are we, are we facing Muslim enclaves where no one else can go? I mean, I'm told it's pretty difficult to go into the centre of Luton nowadays and other places. Already there's a feeling that there's a separate culture there. It's the culture of Islam and not good old British Western democracy. So I just think this is, we're mad not to talk about this now. Just talk about it, learn about it and talk about it. And talk about it with our Muslim friends, our Muslim leaders of this country, and say, can we please have a debate about this? And will you, as the Muslim leaders of this, let's just concentrate on this country. I mean, it may be that much of Europe is already gone. I don't know, France, Holland, Brussels itself, nothing to do with the EU, has got a problem coming earlier than us. We will learn from what happens to them, to us. But why can't we simply get a meeting of our Muslim leaders, our top Muslim leaders, get them to sit down, and why don't they say, all these attacks are coming against Muhammad and the religion of peace. From now on, this is the true Islam in this country. And for instance, they would have to say, they would have to deny the Muslim tenet of abrogation, whereby the later violent verses of the sword, the verses after Muhammad moved to Medina, after the Battle of the Ditch in 627 and all that, became the verses of the sword. And those are the verses which I want to discuss, and I think our Muslim leaders should get rid of. They could invert the whole process. They could say, no. Actually, abrogation means that we cancel the verses of the sword and we stick to the verses of Mecca, which are the peaceful verses of the sword. That is the true Islam. And they could even go and say, and I've been flying this one at them for years, why don't you take jihad, the lesser jihad, which is the violent jihad, why don't you invert it? And say jihad only applies to the struggle within each one of us, the struggle between good and evil in each one of us. Why don't we say that's what jihad is, and that's what we have to fight against? And the religion of Islam is the religion of Mecca and so on. Now, it probably won't happen, and I don't know, but at least we've got to try. And I'd like them to say why they won't do it, and let me tell you, they will not. I have spoken to several. Over the last 10 years, I've spoken to some of the world's leading Muslims. And in this country, I've spoken to some of the leading Muslims. And I've tried to say, come on, let's get together. Why don't you set up a council and really approach this thing? They won't. They won't talk about it. And I thought I had a meeting of various senior Muslims organised the other day. And they were going to come and talk about it exactly along these lines. And I had them invited to a neutral sort of gathering place, and they didn't even answer the invitation. And I said, well, why haven't you? We've asked you. You said you wanted to talk about it. And this leading Muslim replied, well, they don't want to, the others don't want to talk about it. And I said, why not? Is that because they think they've won? And he said, yes, that's what they think. And I don't know, they may be right.
I noticed that there's been a downgrade in the terror threat of late, and I honestly did have the thought cross my mind is maybe there's a connection there. if there's the general understanding that the Muslim population can win on the birth rates in the ballot box, then why would you need to terrorise anyone?
Well, but you're going to have riots before you get there, aren't you? I mean, takes us back to dear Tommy Robinson. I mean, you've only got to read his book, Enemy of the State, where he started, within Luton and what he had to put up with there, and that gave birth to the, whatever it was called, the
EDL?
Yes, the English Defence League. But you read his book and you see how it happened. Well, if this is going to go on, there's going to be more of that. We cannot expect, particularly the white working class in this country, to see the continued Islamification of their communities, with the authorities leaning over backwards to be nice to the Muslim community, to their detriment. We can't expect them to go on doing nothing about it. So I fear riots. I mean, still today, I'm told, in Rotherham, you can see traffic wardens letting off gentlemen in beards from parking on double yellow lines, handheld telephone and everyone. And then you've got, the response of the establishment to the grooming gang scandal, which is probably the greatest scandal in British social history. You're not really allowed to talk about that either. And I'm actually hoping before long to have some really official statistics, because we're guessing. But if you take the 1,400 girls who were raped in Rotherham, and those are semi-official figures, and Rotherham isn't a big place, 120,000 people, 1,400 white and Sikh and anyway non-Muslim girls raped. That's over a period of 2001 to 2016. And you think of 1,400 girls. How many, if you extend that all over, let's say, England, what do you come to? How many girls raped do you come to? And the Quilliam Foundation Muslim thing says it's 83% Muslim, I don't know. And it is true that in the Quran...
Just to correct you there, I believe they said it was 83% Asian.
Well,
so,
what they say is they say Asian men or men of Pakistani origin.
Yeah.
But I would like to discuss whether, in fact, the common denominator is Islam under the doctrine of what your right hand possesses. Can we talk about that?
I don't believe we can.
No, we can't. But anyway,
sorry to bring us back to the TellMAMA article, because there are points in here I wanted to extract and run by you. They accuse you of misusing the census data, but then say, while it is true that the Muslim population has more than doubled in a decade, the census question on religion and non-belief is of self-identification. Lord Pearson, for example, the continued growth of atheism and non-belief, declining Christian belief, and how just over half of those surveyed for the National Centre of Social Research believe in a God figure more broadly. But that doesn't address your point, does it? The point.
No, as I said, I said in the interview with Adam Bolton that the Muslim birth rate was 10 times the rest of the UK's birth rate, and I got that wrong. I don't have figures on that.
Yeah.
I think it probably is. I think probably most Muslim women, bless them, 4 of them married to one man, each of them having a couple of children. That probably is, but I don't have the figures on that. What I do have the figures is the population,
Yes.
And that is rock solid. 2001 to 2016, the growth rate for the Muslims was 107.3%, and the growth rate for the non-Muslims was 10.9%. So there it is. Let's talk about it.
They then say that the demographic argument shifts to Muslim children outnumbering non-Muslims, which is true in some areas like Washwood Heath in Birmingham with 86%, but untrue in like Bristol, for example, where there were 3 times as many Christian children as Muslim as per the 2011 census data. What do you make of that?
Well, that may be true, but so what?
Well, again, by the 2011 census data.
We were originally, we are basically a Christian, atheistic, pluralist society. What I'm talking about is the aggressive growth of one sector of it, which you're not allowed to talk about.
Yes.
And as soon as you do, you're told you're an Islamophobic, etc., 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 and you ought to be sent to jail as soon as possible.
Well, I'll refer us to a BBC article from September the 26th, 2018, in which they ask, is Mohammed the most popular baby name? And it is. The most popular English boy's name is Oliver, but with all of the different various spellings of Muhammad, if all of those are added up, then there were 1,000 more Muhammads than there were Olivers in Britain, and it was the most popular boy's name. So you can't really deny that there is a large Muslim birth rate if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, that I think, and that reflects really that Muhammad is by far the most popular name amongst Muslims for, you know, for boys, and it probably reflects, but it's not precise statistically, the fact that the birth rate of Muslims is probably going up proportionally much faster than the rest of the country. I mean, you know, under Sharia law, a man can have 4 wives, and if she's only got to have 2 children each, and very well. And I understand, but I'd like to talk about that. That is really happening, big time, all over the country.
And you can't deny that the British public have a sub-replacement birth rate of 1.7 per family. So there has to be a relative decline.
Yes, I think there must be. What did you say? We're 1.7?
1.7
And
children
what is the
per
Muslim?
family.
Do we have that figure?
Well, we have a figure that I haven't confirmed of
Okay.
2.9, but again, I haven't confirmed this one.
But that's the sort of feel of it. I mean, that's what
Yes.
it feels like. But let's find out and let's talk about it.
I agree.
And it doesn't matter, none of it matters, providing Islam is what these people pretend it is. And what I'm worried about is that Islam is something very different to what they pretend it is.
TellMAMA then complained about your House of Lords speech in which you evoked the radicalised and Islamophobic conspiracy of taqiyya.
Yes.
Would you like to explain to me what taqiyya is?
Well, taqiyya is again, I'm not an expert, so you know, I'm not pontificating. Taqiyya is controversial in Islam. It's mostly a Shia tenet, but at its most aggressive, what taqiyya says is that you must imitate the example of the Prophet after he moved in 622 from Mecca to Medina, where he lay low for 5 years while his followers increased, until they were strong enough to take over the generous, multicultural, multi-faith hosts and say, look, either you join our religion, or you join my religion, or I'll fine some of you. The rest of you will either go into exile or I'll kill you. And that's where we come back to the massacre in 627 of 600 Jews in one afternoon. So taqiyya, taken at its most aggressive, is from the Shia school of Islam, is very worrying. But I would say, well, sort of any race which is sort of oppressed and living under an oppressive regime, they lie and they deceive, etc., etc. The difference is that these people are not living under an oppressive, beastly regime. They're living under a regime which is extremely generous to them, which they have benefits and all the rest of it, and friendship from all of us, really.
But even if they do believe that you have made a mistake here, then is it not incumbent on them to come and have a conversation with you?
Yes.
So, like you're asking for.
I'd love to talk about taqiyya, but I mean, the one I really want to talk about is abrogation. I mean, that's the big one. And then the other one, of course, staring you in the face, is al-hijra, which is the example of what happened after 627, after he'd moved from Mecca to Medina, and Islam, his religion, went on to conquer most of the known world. And you know, I don't think one could get away from the fact that the Crusades were a response to 400 years of Muslim aggression. That's an historical fact.
Yes.
Now, to what extent, you know, don't let's forget that Islam is a religion where the political, legal, and religious system, it's all one thing. It's all in one. It takes its authority entirely from the Quran and the example of the Prophet during his lifetime, and what he said and what he did, and the Hadith and the Sunnah and all that. So that's what we're dealing with. And so, let's talk about it. Abrogation. If I picked one, I would pick abrogation, which is that the verses of the sword cancel the verses of peace. Do they? Because if they do, Islam cannot possibly be a religion of peace. Now, I'm afraid I said that on Sky, and I think Sky was mainstream media. You don't usually get an opportunity to say that sort of thing. And TellMAMA and everyone, they're still jumping up and down. And the complaints, I think it's over 600-700 complaints already to Ofcom, which is our media regulator. Haven't yet, the police haven't knocked on the door yet. We shall see.
They finished the article by essentially complaining about the bigotry against Muslims in the United Kingdom and suggest that you might be helping to stoke that, and reference the Christchurch shooting and Mr. Stephen Yaxley Lennon, otherwise known as Tommy Robinson.
Yes.
Do you have any response to that?
Well, yes. I mean, obviously the shooting in New Zealand was terrible and all that. Sorry, put your question again.
They spend the rest of the article complaining that the Muslims in Britain are living in deprived areas and suffer from bigotry. So.
Yes, well, I think they may be, but they needn't be. I mean, they're free to do what they want. Perhaps if there was a little less inshallah and a little more hard work, they would get out and about like the rest of us. I don't know. But certainly there's no intention to keep them there. They're completely free. They choose not to associate with us, you see. They actually, it's in the Quran, as I mentioned, I mean, O you who believe, do not take the Jews and the Christians for friends. Mm-hmm. They are friends of each other. There it is. Surah 5:51. I mean, are they following that? Why are there these enclaves altogether? Why won't they intermingle with all the rest of us? I mean, we're happy to do it. It's them that's doing it. It's them that's putting on the burqa and wandering around the streets looking like, well, a letterbox, to put it politely. But to me, the burqa, I mean, lovely Muslim ladies, free to do what they want, all the rest of it. But to me, the burqa is a symbol of radical Islam. And when you go into these... in fact, it even goes further than radical Islam, because the chief mufti of Egypt the other day said that the burqa was anti-Islamic.
Yes. That
the only requirement is for women to dress modestly.
Yes.
So you can go into these
and
areas now where everyone, I've got nothing against that, but it does shut people off from the rest of us.
I agree. I think it is part of British culture to be able to see one another's faces, and if we can't see each other's faces, we assume that that person is hiding something.
And you get a really good, long-serving national health doctor in this country who refused to treat a Muslim patient because she wouldn't take her burqa off, and he got struck off, or anyway suspended. I mean, that's the atmosphere. It's coming against it all the time. And yes, these women, why won't, if the violent Muslims are 1% of the Muslim population, what are the other 99% doing about it? And why won't they help us to get some new form of understanding and relationship with Islam? And that means the verses of peace. It does not mean the verses of the sword. It means abrogation in reverse.
Right. So we can summarise your response to TellMAMA as debate me.
Yes. Yeah. And well, not me, but some people who advise me, who know a lot more about. I mean, I'm in the front line on this because I happen to have a small platform in the Lords, and I've been saying this sort of thing for 10 years, actually, since I invited Geert Wilders over here some years ago. I thought he was going too far then, and now I'm not so sure. So that's why I'm in the front line on this. But I'm the only person in either House of Parliament who is trying to talk about it. That shows for many years, and I don't know why. Maybe I'm completely wrong, complete nutter, in which case everyone can ignore, which they will try to go on doing. But let's talk about it. Let's have a great conference. Let's really nail down, one thing, let's nail down abrogation. Which way around is it? Is it the verses of the sword that count, in which case we've got real problems? Or is it the verses of peace? Let's pray that it's the verses of peace, and let's go forth together in peace.
Right, we'll send it there.